Hello, and welcome to another episode of When She No Longer Cooks For You, Here's What You Do. I'm Marcus, you guys know me as Moore, and today we're in Jersey City, New Jersey. Freezing outside, so we had to hike it way out here to get my guy Anthony on the show. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Marcus.
Beautiful. Listen, so I reached out to Brenda, I told her about the show, and you were the first person she mentioned. She said the boy can throw down. So what are you cooking for us today?
I'm going to be doing a open face meatball sub, pull apart style.
Just in time for the Super Bowl.
Just in time.
All right, fellas, you heard it here. Listen, When She No Longer Cooks For You, Anthony, Jersey City, New Jersey, is going to show us what to do. We'll be right back.
So we're going to be doing an open face meatball sub, pull apart style. First thing we're going to do is get our mise en place set. For those that don't know, mise en place means everything in its place. We got some fresh oregano here. I'm going to go ahead and mince that up. So we're going to take this, separate it. I'm going to take the leaves off the stems. Here we go. This is going to be for our sauce, for our meatball sub. There we go. And for your oregano, you want a real authentic Italian flavor. So we're going to use a hefty amount of this, about 2 to 3 tablespoons. So we're going to take this. We're going to get this pressed up. There we go. So there we go. Once you got all your big stems, we're gonna go ahead and mince this up. I'm gonna put all this together. We want really fine pieces, so you're gonna mince this for quite some time. There we go. You're gonna keep going until you get not a fine powder, but a decent size amount. Something along the lines of this. There we go. Take this. I'm gonna go ahead and put this to the side. So we got our oregano set. We're gonna prep our basil as well. Now with the basil, we want to take some pretty big size leaves, because we're gonna shred this. It smells great. Take your basil, you want to lay it flat, overlapping each one. There we go. Once you get all that, you want to roll this up. We're going to go ahead and put this into slices. This is going to be for our sauce as well for the innards of our sandwich. This is roughly about a tablespoon of basil. We're actually gonna save the leaf. Now, I'm gonna take our garlic. What I have here is elephant garlic. So, as the name suggests, a really big piece of garlic. Push this down, get that outer leaf off. There you go. Like I said, big piece of garlic. Set in the trash. Go ahead and slice our end. And we're gonna go ahead and mince this, but we gotta put it into slices first. Another slice. This is all gonna get minced up together. And the reason I'm cutting into slices first, because when mincing garlic, it's a very tiresome process, so it just makes it a little easier. There we go. Now that we got our pieces sliced up, we're gonna go ahead and mince this. And depending on how you like your sauce is going to determine how big you want your chunks. I like my sauce to have a accent of garlic rather than a strong garlic flavor. So we're going to do this kind of fine. So we want it about this fine. Just enough so we can get the flavor, but not enough to where it's overpowering. Go ahead and take that off. Now we're gonna go ahead and preheat our pot. We're gonna put this on a low heat. I got some avocado oil here, add a little bit of oil. I'm gonna let that heat up. All right. Now, with this, gonna put this to the side because we're gonna saute that in a second. Remember, never be afraid of garlic. If you don't love garlic, you're doing something wrong. There we go. Now, sorry. So, now that that's set, I'm gonna move this to the side. We're gonna go ahead and get our can of tomatoes open. I'm using whole peeled tomatoes. Get this set up. Crack this open. One thing about this dish is that by the end, you're definitely gonna get an arm workout. Okay, pop that open. There we go. All right, now that we got our tomatoes, I'm actually gonna move this to the side. Got my bowl underneath here. Go ahead. Pour tomatoes in. I'm actually gonna get all that on the inside. Now, we're gonna get our gloves because we're gonna go ahead and crush these by hand. Actually gonna cut this fan on real quick. Now, like I said, whole tomatoes, peeled. All right, we're gonna go ahead and crush these for our sauce. Give it a real authentic Italian flavor. There we go. Depending on how you want your sauce, if you like a smoother sauce, you could crush it for a little longer. I like mine as I have a little chunk to it. So we're gonna go ahead and that's about it. Just lightly crush. That's what you want it to look like. No, real authentic, make you feel like you're at a restaurant in Italy, enjoying a vacation, but from the comfort of your own home. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these off. I'm gonna go ahead and dump these in the trash. Now we're gonna check on our oil here. Oil has heated up. We're now gonna take our garlic, put it right in here. Now you want to saute this for a sec. We're not adding any salt, any pepper yet until the end. We're gonna go ahead and let this cook down for a bit. While we do that, we're gonna go ahead and start working on our meatball. So once you got your sauce set, because all that left is to put the tomatoes in the pan. And we're gonna leave that, leave it alone, let it simmer, let it cook, let those flavors come together. Now, I have here 2 loaves of French bread. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open. Now, I'm gonna take our pan. We're actually gonna carve out the inside. Take our knife. This is a bread knife for those that don't know. Carve this. Then I'm gonna pull this out. We don't need that. We're gonna save this for our meatball. It's gonna be our homemade breadcrumb of sorts. Take out all the inside. You want to be left with a cavity for your cheese, your sauce, your meatball, all that goodness. So that's all you're left with this. We're going to do the same thing with our other loaf. And as we're going, you can smell that garlic starting to saute a bit, get a little toasty. It's gonna add flavor to our sauce. There we go. All this out. Now remember, you don't want to take too much out, only because you don't want your sub to fall apart. Just enough to create a divot, a low boat of sorts. So now I'm gonna put this back to the side. And we're gonna go ahead and check on our garlic. See, starting to develop some nice color. Some of those toasty bits. Smells great, looks great, it's gonna taste great. Now, we're actually gonna add our oregano in now and saute it. Oil is gonna activate those flavors, those natural oils, before we add our tomatoes in. I'll put this back on the fire. I'm gonna let that go for about a minute. And you're actually gonna take a basil bush, about this size for our sauce. I'll place that right there. Now, as that's going, you wanna break up some of your bread, make it in more manageable pieces. There we go. Because we're actually going to soak this in milk. I'm going to go ahead and pour this all over the top. Not too much, just enough so we can soak that in. This is going to act as the binder for our meatballs. I'm going to leave that, let that soak in. And by now, our oregano and garlic should be ready. Okay. Now that we got that garlic toasted, that oregano activated, all those oils coming together, we're gonna go ahead, throw in our tomatoes. There we go. Mix all that together. Bring everything to the top. Like I said, I keep it nice and chunky. I like my sauce to have a little texture. There we go. Throw in your basil leaf. Then just leave that on the stove. All right. Now we can start working on our meatball. What I have here is some ground beef. I have about 3 pounds of ground beef. I'm gonna add some pork sausage. Got 1 packet of pork sausage. And just for a little variety of flavor, we're adding 2. Right. Now we're gonna grab our gloves because we want to mix that together. Everything by hand. Go ahead and mix that together. Now we're actually not going to use this entire mixture, but it's always good to have some prepped because I guarantee you're going to want to make this again. There you go. Make sure you're turning, mixing everything. You want everything in one cohesive mass. Now that we got that mixed together, we'll be right back. Now that we got our meat mixture all mixed up, like I said, we're gonna take about half this mixture, put it in a separate bowl. You save that for later. You can add it to pastas. You can make another sandwich. You can eat it just as is. It's gonna be that good. There we go. So you want about, like I said, you want about to take half. So you got 2 bowls here. All right, now I'm gonna check on our bread. Our bread has soaked. We're gonna go ahead, add this to the meatball mixture. Like I said, this is gonna be our binder for our meatball. Go ahead, take another one. Mix that all in together. Now when I say as a binder, it's just gonna help keep the meatball keep its shape so it doesn't fall apart when we're cooking. You can use this, you can use crackers, you can use breadcrumbs. It's all dependent on your choice. I just like using the bread since that we had it anyways from the boat that we're gonna be using. There we go. Now, once that's all together and mixed up, I'm gonna go ahead and take these off, one of them. Now we can start seasoning our mixture. So I have here some salt. I'm gonna be very generous with the salt. It's a large mixture. I want it to be flavorful all throughout. Try to mix as you go. And you want to try not to be too heavy-handed with it, because it's a lot easier to add in than it is to take out. There we go. Have some black pepper. Bring that all in there. Now this you could be very generous with. I love a peppery taste. I'm gonna turn the bowl as you go. Really see it starting to come together. Sticking to the glove. I'm gonna throw in our basil shreds so we have that basil taste all throughout. There we go. You got salt, pepper. There we go. Go ahead and take this off. Oh, dump this in the trash. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat on our sauce up to a medium, just so we can get it simmering. There we go. We're also gonna preheat our pan with a little avocado oil. Low heat, just enough to cover the bottom. Okay, now that we have that all set, I'm gonna take this here. This part we're gonna save for later. Go ahead and move our meatball mixture. I have a baking sheet. We're gonna line it with some parchment paper. Just enough to cover it. Now we're gonna take our scoops. We're gonna take a very generous portion. We're gonna roll it into our meatballs. You want it about the size of a golf ball because you want it to fill in the cavity of your bread. About this. I'm gonna place that there. And the scoop just helps keep it all uniform. Make sure everything looks the same, cooks the same. And the way I do it, I like to cut my hand at the bottom and just motion it around. That way we get left with these perfectly fine spears. So because of the size, we're gonna be doing 6 meatballs for three per loaf. And just a tad bit more. I'm gonna roll this around a bit. You can actually smell that sauce cooking. You can smell the garlic, the oregano, the tomatoes. There we go. Now that we have 6, we're gonna go ahead and wash our hands. Pretty sure y'all can hear the sirens. So you know that you definitely can't do this from home. This is not a professional kitchen. Okay. Now, once we got that, we're gonna check on our oil. We're gonna go ahead and pump this up to about a medium low. And if you wanna check, just take a piece, throw it in there. If it's not sizzling, it's not ready yet. We'll move this to the side. We're gonna clean our station as we go. Okay. I'm gonna check on this oil again. Our sauce is starting to simmer a bit. Just gonna stir that. Oh, that's good. We're gonna go ahead and pump this up to a medium. Because we want to get a sear on our meatballs. We want it to have some color on all sides before we put it in the oven. I'm gonna go ahead and take one. You're just not ready yet. You want your oil to be fairly hot. Hot enough to sear it, but not hot to where it burns on contact. And now that we brought our sauce to a simmer as well, we go ahead and crank it to a high so we can start reducing, having those flavors incorporate, try to burn off some of the acid from the tomatoes. There we go. Our oil's almost ready. I'll crank it up just a little bit. Like I said, clear down your station. I'm gonna go ahead and test this again. There we go. All right, that's it. We're gonna add the rest. Now we're waiting for those to brown. We're gonna let our sauce simmer. We're gonna let the meatballs brown, gain some color, cook through, and we'll be back with that. So we're gonna go ahead and turn our meatballs over now that they got a little color. Now a little golden brown action, a little G-Bad, golden brown and delicious. Now we got our sauce going at a rolling boil. We're gonna go ahead and drop that down to a medium low. Now back here, I have 2 sticks of butter, softening up. We're gonna go ahead and make the butter and we're gonna brush the inside of our bread with.
So do you recommend adding sugar because the acid in the component tomato?
So my mom just asked me if I would recommend adding sugar to your tomato sauce if it's homemade. I do recommend adding about a teaspoon just to cut the acidity. But I've also learned a different trick by adding some Parmesan and Romano cheese. It adds a little bit more depth as well as help with the acidity. So you don't have to add sugar because if you're like me, I don't like a sweet sauce. So we got our 2 sticks of butter. All right. It's about a half a cup of butter each stick. So we got a cup of butter here. Move that to the side. Move this. Because then we have our second cutting board. Now we're going to take some more of that oregano that we had from earlier. I'm going to fold that in. We're going to add some salt, some pepper. Really make a flavorful butter to brush the inside with. That's going to toast the inside as well as give the bread, let it soak up that butter.
So why is all the seasonings fresh? You don't like the container oregano and basil?
So my mom asked me, why do I use fresh herbs and seasonings? And to answer that, I use it because when you buy the pre-packaged, the pre-ground, all those oils that are in the natural plant start to go away after some time. When you use it fresh and you add heat to it, each herb releases its own natural oil. That's how you get that flavor, that taste, that authentic taste. And plus fresh is better either way. So we're gonna add some of that. Some of our oregano. There we go. We're gonna go ahead and clean off our knife a bit. Now a trick that I use for cutting, I like to use a claw method. Helps protect your fingers. Place your fingers down, it tucks your fingertips in so that way you don't end up cutting yourself. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Bring everything together because we're gonna go for a mix. My cutting board is moving a bit, so we're gonna go ahead and grab our wrap. When your cutting board moves, you're more likely to make a mistake that could result in you cutting your fingers, and nobody likes that. Place this down.
So how long did it take you to perfect cutting? How did you learn?
So I just got asked how long it took me to perfect cutting, and I still am perfecting it. To get to the level that I am now, it did take some cuts. I have scars from cutting. It's just a matter of starting off at your own pace until you get comfortable. It's okay if you start off, and all you can do is that eventually you start to progress, and then you can just fold it. The faster you go, the more you can do at a shorter amount of time. Especially if you work in a kitchen. Those that work in a kitchen know that efficiency is everything. All right, now our oregano is minced up to a fine powder. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna add it straight to the butter. Now with basil, it's a little different. Basil is something we call a soft herb, and you don't ever want to cut it too much because all those oils I talked about will end up on your cutting board, and then it relieves no flavor for your dish. So we're gonna take a couple of strands, a couple of leaves. Like I said, we're gonna lay them out, overlap them in each other. Make sure everything is set. And right before we do that, we're gonna go ahead and check on our meatball. We're gonna go ahead and leave it to the side so we can get those sides browned up. Perfect. I'm gonna take our basil. We roll it up like this to make it more manageable. Nice and tight. Go ahead and shred that. Making sure our fingers are tucked in. Now we all that's left, just your stem, you just guard that. Now we got these beautiful strands of basil, we're gonna add straight to our butter. Now, like I said, we're gonna add a pinch of salt. Yes.
So is there a reason why you use kosher salt instead of iodized salt? What's the difference in the two?
So I use kosher salt because with iodized salt, it's a lot harder to manage how much you're adding. And kosher salt is a little healthier. It's not as many chemicals, it's a more natural process. So always kosher salt over iodized salt.
Is it true that kosher salt brings out the flavor versus making it spicy?
And the kosher salt does bring out the flavor of most of your food. It enhances most flavors of anything you make. Like I said, it's also healthier being that it's it's more natural. So we're gonna go ahead and mash our butter. Just wanna mix everything together. Until it's nice and soft and malleable, because again, we're gonna brush this on the inside of our bread. Like I said, just salt, pepper, some fresh herbs. That's all you need. And then you're left with a nice, decent compound butter. You wanna slice it, you wanna whip. Now, if you could find whipped butter, that would be a lot easier. I use regular butter just because I don't mind the work. But you can easily do whipped butter and do the same thing, add the same herbs and spices. You got a little leftover here, throw that in. There we go. Now, we're gonna take our bread that we had cavity up here. We're gonna grab our spatula. We're just gonna take a little of that mixture, place it on the inside. Make sure to get every crevice. Along
So most meatball sandwiches people make on Hero. What's the reason of using bread like that?
So I use this type of bread. It's a lot deeper. Using a Hero is fine too, but since we're making an open face, we want a cavity where we could layer the flavors. We can add the sauce, our cheese, our meatball, sauce, cheese, meatball. Plus, I think it's a little more fun to eat, you know, especially on game day. You bring this out, you and your buddies, you're watching a game, pull this apart. It's fun to eat, make you feel like a kid again. Just want to make sure we get all of the inside. And the reason I use the cup, because you're going to want to use about half a cup per loaf. Once that's all set, we got our inside look like this. There we go. We're gonna work on our second one. Take a hefty amount all along the inner cavity. Making sure you get everywhere because you want all that buttery goodness in every bite that you take. Now you could also do the same thing with melted butter, but I find that if you add the butter cold and let it melt and incorporate in, as the bread toasts, it absorbs it and gives it a nice golden brown finish on the inside. There we go.
So are you gonna add the meatballs so the bread hot, or do you let them like set first?
So we're gonna let our meatballs rest just for a couple of seconds, just so that way none of those juices run out. And they're actually going to finish cooking in the oven. We want to get our meatballs to about a medium well. So I'm actually gonna take these off. So as you see, we got some browning. And if you check the side, the middle is like slightly pink, running out those juices. That's why we're gonna let it set, so it traps all that in. I'm gonna go ahead and leave those towards the back. Now I'm actually going to take some onion. I'm gonna do some thin sliced onion to add to the inside of the sandwich. So we're gonna,
Does the type of onion matter, yellow, red versus white?
now,
It's an onion.
with the difference of onions, different onions have a different flavor profile. Some of them taste better made certain ways. So for red onions, you would do red onions for pickling or eating them raw, because they have a more milder flavor versus a white onion that has a stronger taste for it, which is what you would cook down for like caramelized onions, cooked onions, skewers. I'm gonna take our outside layer. I'm gonna take that clean off.
Is there a special way you should cut the onion? Or do you just chop it up any way you want?
There are actually multiple ways for you to cut an onion. So in the kitchen, we have different names for different cuts that have different sizes. Julienne, brunoise, small dice. What I'm gonna be doing is a julienne cut, which is essentially a thin slice cut. So we got our root off. We're gonna take a little bit more of that off. And then from here, tuck our fingers in, and then because what we want is nice thin strands. I'm gonna flip this over. There we go. So now we're left with nice thin slices of onion. Actually gonna cut this off. There we go. And to the same oil that we cooked our meatballs in, we're gonna add this onion to that. Keep all the flavors, make sure everything's together, everything tastes good, and it helps reduce waste. There we go. See, even I make mistakes sometimes, but it's fine. I'm gonna take our onion straight into the oil, just like that. Now, because this is going in the oven, sorry, we're not gonna cook these entirely. We're just gonna soften them up a bit. Take our tongs, toss it around. Now you can either add the onions to the sandwich yourself, or as your sauce is cooking down, you can add it to your sauce. I do recommend a chunky sauce. I like my food to have a lot of different textures. So I feel like if your sauce is a little too smooth, it burns easily, it won't incorporate well. So I always do something chunky, nothing too, I don't want a big chunk of tomato, but I also don't want soup. We don't want tomato soup, we want a sauce. And a trick that I do is I actually add the Parmesan cheese. So we're gonna take that. And we're gonna add a hefty amount of Parmesan cheese to our sauce. That's gonna round out our flavors, give it a bit more texture. I'm gonna drop this to a low. And you see now it's starting to resemble marinara sauce, which is what we want.
So you added grated Parmesan. What if you have the same results if it was shaved
Yeah.
Parmesan cheese?
So the problem with shaved Parmesan cheese is that how your cheese is cut determines how fast it melts. So we do a grated just because we want it to incorporate quickly. As you can see, starting to get a nice thick marinara sauce. Some Parmesan cheese, some basil, that oregano, that garlic. This is essentially going to be the base of our sandwich. I'm actually going to let this cook down just a little longer. We can discard this. Like I said, we're not gonna cook the onions all the way. Once they get kind of soft, I'm actually gonna add this to our marinara sauce. And then we're gonna start par toasting our bread. We got that butter in there. We want it to just melt just a little bit. And place this in the oven. We have our oven set to 350 degrees. We're gonna leave that in there for about 5 minutes. And when 5 minutes is over, we'll be back and we'll start assembling our sandwich. All right, welcome back. It's been about 5 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and take our loaves out of the oven. Go ahead and move some of this over. There we go, we got some of that butter melted, harden the bread up a little bit. Incorporate those flavors in, so when we put it back in the oven with the finished product, we get that flavor all throughout. Nice and toasted, nice little crunch. All right, now we can start assembling our sandwich. Go ahead and move this over. Because our sauce is done, our meatballs are ready. I'm actually going to take some of this butter that we have too towards the end and brush the outside so we get that buttery flavor all throughout the sandwich. We have our marinara sauce, cheesy, chunky, nice onions, that garlic, that oregano, basil. So now we're gonna do this in stations. We have mozzarella cheese here.
So what's your take on using grated mozzarella cheese versus the whole chunk?
So depending on what you're using it for is gonna determine how you prepare your cheese. I'm using shredded just because we're making layers. It's gonna give us a chance to get that cheese to go through all throughout the sandwich. So every bite has a cheesy goodness to it. Okay, so we're gonna start off with sauce first. We're gonna add our sauce to the bottom. About a spoonful each per layer. You don't want it too much. You don't wanna jeopardize the integrity of the sandwich. So you're gonna add a sauce. Then we're gonna add our meatball right in here. I'm gonna go ahead and spread that open just a little bit. As you can hear, we're definitely gonna have that crunch. So we're gonna do meatball, meatball. I'm gonna keep everything nice and together. Meatball. Now, we're gonna take our cheese. Like I said, this is grated mozzarella cheese. I'm gonna take a good handful all over the top. It's okay if it falls over to the side. You want cheese throughout everywhere. Press it down a bit. Take another handful. Make sure it gets in every crevice. Get it all in there. Like I said, we want a cheesy bite in every bite that we take. So it's okay if you get heavy with the cheese. Spoon of sub. I'm gonna take another spoonful of sauce, about a half a spoonful, just to cover. I'm gonna take another one. Now, depending on how you like your sandwich, you could alternate this. You could add less sauce, you could add more sauce, you could do more cheese. It all depends on your preference. Then we're gonna finish it off with another sprinkle of cheese on top. And we got our first one done. Second one, same process as before. We
Now,
got
would you recommend doing a better cheese
uh,
versus a better sauce?
it all depends on how you want your sandwiches. I feel like if you want a more cheesy bread type sandwich, you could do a better cheese. You could do more cheese than sauce. I like my food to be kind of moist. So I'll do sauce, then cheese. Kind of hit it with another slice of cheese. Another handful of cheese. Press it down, get it in there. Every crevice. Because remember, this is a pull apart style, so you want to have some cheese pull when you pull it apart. Make sure to get everything in there. Press it down. Come hit it with another layer of sauce. Make sure you get you some onions. It's okay if you get a basil leaf in there, that's all flavor. Gonna top it off. And then hit it with another handful of cheese. There we go. A little bit more. I like a lot of cheese, so I'm gonna actually hit the second one with a little bit more. We're gonna turn on the broiler function of our oven. Give that a second. I'm gonna take some more of this butter that we made, because this right here is gonna be the best butter you've had. I'm gonna take this and brush the sides. Really get it over around the edges. And you don't gotta use this butter just for your meatball subs. If you wanna put this on toast in the morning, by all means. There we go. Just gonna brush every crevice, the whole outside. That's actually gonna add some color to the bread too. And while we're doing this, our oven, like I said, is preheating. Broiler function is about 525 degrees. We just want to get some color over the top and finish cooking those meatballs through. They're already fully cooked through, just so that way we could get a more medium well, more well done. I'm gonna take this.
Do your meatballs have pork?
My meatballs do have pork. Put it right in the oven, over the top. Butter's already sizzling, cheese is already melting. We're gonna let that broil for about 2 to 3 minutes. And in between that time, you could clear down. You can go ahead and sneak some of the sauce if you want to. And we'll be back when it's finished. Welcome back. We had our meatball subs in the broiler. They're all done now. Go ahead and take these out. And then here we go. Cheesy, gooey. Got the sauce all throughout. I'm gonna go ahead and a little hot. I'm gonna go ahead and take this. And I'll go ahead and break these into sections so we can get that cheese full.
So do you recommend putting any grated parm on top or
You
leave
could,
it as is?
you could do grated parm on top if you want to. You could also just leave it as is. You could add some more sauce. You could use the marinara that you made as a dip. It all depends on how you want this done. So I'm actually have my plate here. We're gonna take about a decent spoonful of sauce, put it at the bottom, spread that out. I'm gonna take our centerpiece right here, really get that cheese full. And there we go. This is what you're looking for. This is the pull apart that you're looking for with your meatball sub. We're gonna go ahead and place this right on top of here. Got some parsley. Just gonna go ahead, put it over the top. And there we go. This is our open face meatball sub, pull apart style. Homemade sauce, homemade meatballs, everything fresh, everything good. Like I said, great on game day, great just to have. And I'll see y'all next time.
Okay, welcome back. Listen, you know me, this is the best part of the show where I get to sample the food. Anthony threw down. Okay, let me tell you something that's funny. Now, Anthony hits me up yesterday. He's like, I'm making a... I took it as a meatball sub. So I'm like, well, Anthony, can you give me 28 minutes with that? This was so much more than that. This kid really rocked out. Anthony, let me have it.
All right, here you go. Open face meatball sub.
Ooh, this is a lot of cheese. That is really good. Okay, we gotta talk. This is really good. Let me get one more bite before we talk, okay?
All right.
To watch you sit there and make this, you know, I didn't come here hungry, but I'm really hungry now. Watching you do this, so
Everything fresh.
yes. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk. One thing, how old are you?
22 years
You're
old.
22 years old. And I was really impressed the way you maneuvered around the kitchen. Like you've been doing it for years. Just to find out you're only 22.
Right.
You know, you're like, 6 years older than my son. But it was really impressive. I'm actually gonna have him look at this segment because he wants to get into cooking as well. Let's talk about you though. Like what, at 22 years old, you know, your maturity in the kitchen. What inspired you to get into the kitchen? How long you been cooking? And we need to know that.
So I've been cooking since I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
I've always been interested in food. I love to eat.
Okay.
And watching my mom cook and watching her maneuver, I always wanted to help her out in the kitchen. But I kind of got tired of always doing the opening the cans or throwing stuff out.
Gotcha.
So I got into cooking seriously, learning how to make stuff myself, learning how to do something basic like eggs and progressing from there. And then just that thrill and excitement of being in the kitchen pushed me along through over the years. Between watching documentaries on it, testing out new things, it's just cooking is something that is something I was born to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you're in culinary school.
Right.
So what inspired that move? I take it, I mean, you wanting to cook, but what made you want to take that leap? Because it's one thing to be cooking at home and cooking with mom or cooking for your boys, or you know, but what made you take that leap into culinary school?
So after spending many years of just testing out recipes and trying to make stuff, being self-taught and watching videos just never, it wasn't enough for me. I felt like I put myself in a bit of a bubble.
Okay.
That professional training, that having somebody that's been in the field, had that experience, come to me and tell me, try it this way or do it like this, was what I felt like I was lacking in my cooking. Because I always wanted to do cooking as a profession, as a career.
Okay. Okay.
And I knew that in order to make that dream a reality, I would have to learn from someone that is living my
Willing to be
dream.
taught. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, this is really really good. So how far do you want to take it? I mean, you just want to be the best cook that's ever done. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
So actually, I have a dream of essentially being a culinary nomad.
Okay.
I want to travel the world, take different pieces of culinary from different places, bring those to other places, mix them together. Like the top 3 places I want to go in the world is Japan, Italy,
oh wow.
and France.
Okay.
I love the way a French kitchen maneuvers. They maneuver like a French brigade in the army. It's very serious, very strict, very professional. I love the flavors that Japan brings, all those exotic flavors, things that you would never normally eat that become your favorite food. And in Italy, it's about the family aspect of it.
Okay.
That sitting down, that, you know, having that robust, almost like grandma's cooking feel that I want to bring to the world.
Got you. Okay. What do you say to like my son's out there? Because you're young. To me, you're young. What do you say to like guys who probably his age and want to get into cooking? I'm sure you encourage that. But what advice would you give them?
I would say just do it. Go in.
Go.
Don't be afraid to mess up. Make the mistakes. Do things. Some things won't taste good. Some things might not turn out as you plan. You have to appreciate the failure of cooking to appreciate the success. You know, it's different between making something and it tasting good, and it's different between making something and being able to laugh at how it didn't come out.
Okay. No, that's a good point. Now, I had a lot of questions regarding this meal, but Mom asked them a lot of them.
Right.
It's all good. I noticed when you were putting you had a good amount of ground beef, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good amount of pork, but when you bite into the burgers, you taste that pork. It like jumps right at you. I didn't know pork would. I mean, I've had pork before, but
Right.
biting into this, biting it, you instantly taste the pork. So it's obvious that you had it, the good portion of how to balance that out and everything. And I've never heard of. I'm embarrassed to say, I've never heard of that big piece elephant garlic.
Elephant garlic, yes.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, and I cook, but I've never heard of that. But this, I'm gonna finish this off because this was so good. How long you been cooking? This is your first time you trying this, or you cooked this before?
So, in terms of this dish itself, this is my first time making it.
Oh really?
Yes. But making the sauce and making the meatballs, all that stuff goes into just technique, trial and error, being able to, over the years, building up that creativity to make something and put it into reality.
Okay. What's the one thing you do have trouble cooking?
I would say I have trouble with baking.
Baking. Okay.
Baking I have a lot of trouble with, and it seems like the more, not simpler, but the more technical things, like I'm embarrassed to say it, I can't make an omelet. I struggle with making omelets. I can make souffle by accident,
Okay.
but if I try to make an omelet, it's gonna just turn into scrambled
I
eggs.
hear that. Well, listen. When she don't cook for you, Anthony showed us what to do. Amazing job. Every time I do a segment, I don't know what I'm walking into, honestly. And like I said, I'm gonna clown you again. When you text me the meatball thing, I'm like, okay, let's see what he got. But you
Right.
you took it to another level. I appreciate you being on. Hey, you are always welcome back on. Yeah, you maneuver around the kitchen like you've been doing it for a very long time. And it's for you to only be 22 years old, that's freaking amazing. My brother, thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, we're gonna call it a night. I have to finish this off because it's so good and I'm so hungry and he has the whole house smelling so good. So, when she on cook for you, Anthony showed us what to do. You guys have a good night.
Have a good night.